I want to talk about one fetish in particular and maybe set it up a little bit. So, in preparation for this conversation, I had a conversation with a friend of mine's partner who's a cam girl. And I just kind of want to get some insight into her world and kind of ask a bunch of dumb questions so that I hopefully didn't ask too many dumb questions in this conversation. And she told me about this thing called Findom. You know much about Findom?
Yeah.
So I've been rabbit holing really hard on this and I really want to discuss it with you. But perhaps you should set it up for the audience. And so let's assume our audience, like me, had never heard of what Findom is. And then let's discuss, because I kind of have some strong opinions about this now, which I didn't think I would. So I would love to...
you might know just as much about it as I do. Like, I haven't done a deep dive in my own research on it yet. I've just been around some girls who do it, but I've never done it myself. Yeah, but Findom is it's like a sexual kink where a guy is interested in a woman sort of extracting money from him through various ways, like dominating him.
Financial domination, I guess.
Yeah. So she'll call him like pay pigs and be like, you're good for nothing. You're only good for, buying me presents, and I'll step on you with my heels that you bought from me kind of scenario. Which is, I think, like often women's fantasy. Women often are like, oh man, if I could only just be a Findommer. It sounds like a really easy way to make money. But from what I hear, it's actually harder than you think, which makes sense. Market stabilizes.
Wait, so do they give I guess they don't give the money back after, right? So they do this thing, and then it's like...
Yeah, so if Aella was a Findom and I was her pay pig or, quote, human ATM, there's a number of these, then I would text Aella and say something like, my princess, I'm not worthy of your affection, and here's my tributes to you kind of thing. And then she would call me a piece of shit and then ask for more money. And then call me another piece of shit and then ask for more money, because there's very much a dominant submission thing happening. Okay, so that's what I was told. And that's kind of the intro to the subject. And so when you Google Findom or financial domination, on YouTube, you see a bunch of like videos of 19 to 23-year-olds talking about how to drain their subs. And it's kind of this like light bubbly thing that is kind of joked about. But then if you start Googling like Findom abuse or Findom harm or Findom addiction, then you get pushed to a very different area of the internet. And that's when I started taking a deep interest in this, because if you do a bit of a controlled experiment and you type in like Findom addiction Reddit, and you can compare it to like sex addiction Reddit or gambling addiction Reddit or porn addiction Reddit, what you see is that the Findom posts don't stop. They keep going. And when it becomes an addiction, then it becomes very, very dark, very quickly. And so to kind of demonstrate that, I wanted to show a 3-minute clip. And so let's play that, and then we'll come back and have some kind of comments afterwards. But I'd love to get your reactions to it.
Yeah. So let me get this right. So you wake up at, say, to like 3 a.m. to some texts from a woman in America.
Yeah.
And she's like abusing you. She's giving you shit. She's like, and then she's like, oh, by the way, for me to do this, you now owe me £100.
Oh, well, she's worse. She'll keep going and getting worse. And she'll say, I hate you, and you're never going to be rid of me. She literally, I mean, even now, I managed, after a certain really dark incident happened about Easter, I haven't messaged her since. Well, she keeps going on how she's going to ruin me, destroy my life, basically drive me to suicide. And I mean, she goes on and on. It really like bombards you with it. And this is over, months and months, almost constantly. Quite often she'll do it in the middle of the night as well. So you're sort of, half asleep and a bit woozy, and she'll just keep doing it and doing it. And then she'll get you to take shots sometimes as well. So you're drunk while she's doing it to you. And she just somehow gets in your head. But I mean, she then starts sending photographs of people cutting themselves and things and razor blades. And then she's like, you want to. And then she keeps going on. And then eventually she demanded that I send her $500. And at the moment I pressed send, I had to get a razor blade and cut my arm here. Now, I've never done that before. I've never, ever been into self-harming in any way. But I did do it. I've still got a slight scar on my arm. And that's from 3 months ago. It still hasn't quite gone. because I'd never done it before, I must have cut too deep. It didn't stop bleeding for ages. It was terrifying. But after that, that's when I drew the line and I've tried to stay away from it, because, I mean, that messed with my head for a few days afterwards. I was just like, I was thinking, how the hell can this have happened? How could I have gone that far? I mean, there's fun, and then there's whatever the hell happened there. You know, that's like way
Does your
over a
wife
line.
understand the extent that this has been taken to?
Well, she knows about that, because, I mean, I literally ended up calling her in because we had to try and stop it bleeding. I mean, it was dreadful. I mean, the cut was quite deep, so it literally did not want to stop. So she understands the extent physically, although I don't think she quite grasps quite how much has gone financially. But at the same time, it's nothing that would have just been money put aside. It's not money that, you know, has directly affected her life.
So I have some comments about this, but I would love to hear your reflections, and then I'll maybe contextualize a little bit why I think this is an interesting subject.
Yeah. So one, I actually have not read I'm in a whole bunch of weird subreddits for fetishes. I actually have not seen the pay-pig addiction one. There's definitely fetishes that have dark sides. Like, for example, if you're into scat, this has like a lot of physical harm associated with it. And this seems probably like one of them, like a lot of financial harm that you can get into if you're not very careful. I feel like slightly weird about this specific clip, though, because, well, maybe I need to read the context. Because often, like, when people get off on being abused, they will ask for it. Like, you'll get texts as a girl being like, tell me I'm a worthless piece of shit. Like, and so without the context, it makes it sound like just a random abuser is abusing him, when probably that woman has been like, has guys begging her like for insults of this kind. Although I'm not saying that like actual abuse doesn't happen, or that this is not an avenue for people who are damaging predators to sort of enact like genuine sadism without care for the people. And it's possible, like, the cutting thing seems really weird. Like, my first thought is like, is she part of like a texting group of Findoms where one Findom was like, hey, my guy like really loves being cut. He's like paying me $1,000 to make me cut him. And then she's like, oh, maybe I should try that. This is like my first theory. But also my second theory is like, maybe she's just really like sadistic and fucked up and doesn't care about it at all. It sounds like that's the way he feels about it.
Yeah, well, so my reaction when I saw that and when I learned about this little world was like, okay, is this just some random one-off? Or is this a much bigger problem than perhaps a single video would indicate? And I think it's actually a much bigger problem. And the reason I think that is, well, there's a couple things. First, like any addiction, there's like a numbing effect, like with any drug, where a little bit doesn't work anymore. So you have to keep going higher and higher. But the other thing that's unique about this particular addiction, compared to any other addiction I can think of, is that, like, if you are addicted to Coke, say, or addicted to alcohol, first of all, more than just two people know about it. With Findom, it's you and the Dom and nobody else.
Yeah.
Second, with Coke or with alcohol, if your drug dealer has things to do. They have to launder the money. They have to get the product. They have to meet people. But with this particular addiction, the job of the Dom, the full-time job, is to force relapse over and over and over again, because of the incentive structure here.
Yeah.
So it absolutely is something that both sides are asking for at the beginning, but then it starts ramping up, and the incentives are so perverse that both sides can't escape this twisted dyad that they find themselves in. And so part of the reason I want to bring this up is because I think you are uniquely situated to actually study this problem and figure out how much of a problem it actually is compared to my kind of rather haphazard Reddit research. But from my Reddit research and just basic poking around, I guess there's 400 FAAs, Findom Addicts Anonymous, internationally, that have opened up over the last little while. And that I got from a different podcast. FetLife has banned it. And I think there's been a big rise of this over the last 4 or 5 years with the rise of OnlyFans.
Yeah, I want to emphasize your point by saying FetLife banning something is not trivial. FetLife doesn't ban things. FetLife is like maybe the most accepting thing on the internet for fetishes, and the only things they've banned are things that they're legally pressured to ban, like to not violate obscenity laws to get their website shut down. So the fact that FetLife banned a pay pig thing, that updates me quite a bit. I think that's like a really good sign that it's actually really damaging, or at least has that potential.
Yeah, I'm not 100%. So I was trying to analogize it to other addictions in my head, and I'm not totally on board with your claim that it's disanalogous to various addictive drugs, say, right? Like because you can just make the argument that, yeah, your drug dealer, so for some highly addictive methamphetamine or something, say, your drug dealer also has an incentive to try and sell you as much as possible, right? And to try and get you to like buy more and more of the drug. And you also, with various drugs, have this effect where you need, just because of your brain chemistry adapts to it after a certain point, you need more and more to sustain the same high, right? And so, yeah, so I guess, yeah, I'd criticize your claim that it's disanalogous to other kinds of addiction.
Reminds me of casino gambling.
Yeah, that's another good one, right? Like the casino is always open. It's always there for you to go and burn more and more money, right? So, obviously this isn't equivalent to a claim that this is an okay thing or a good thing or a healthy thing, etc. But it's unclear to me whether we should look at this as a unique kind of addictive situation or just sort of one among many.
I think it would be
as callous as that sounds, maybe.
I think that if the drug dealer came to your house or messaged you at 4:00 in the morning with photos of a crack pipe, knowing that you're trying to quit, then it would be more analogous. But that kind of thing doesn't happen too often. Drugs are intrinsically addictive. And so when a drug dealer is giving drugs out, yeah, they're not going to stop you from coming back to them. That's kind of uncommon. But I don't think it's very common for a drug dealer to know that their client is actively trying to quit and then send them parcels, send them texts at 4:00 in the morning, do this thing called forced intox, which I guess is a terminology for when the Dom forces the sub or suggests that the sub starts taking drugs. And I think another point where it's disanalogous to drug addiction or gambling addiction is the fact that it's so shameful and so underground and that nobody knows about it. And I think that's what makes it unique. But I want to come to the gambling thing and then move the conversation ever so slightly, because this made me update in slightly the opposite direction with regards to OnlyFans and camming and online stuff. And so I'd love to hear your pushback on this. So I grew up on Dan Savage. I grew up in kind of a liberal, escorting is fine, escorting is great, sex work is positive, female empowerment and taking charge of your own finances and don't be slut shamed. And that's all fantastic. But then I started thinking about Findom as maybe one radical extreme, but I'm kind of viewing camming and to some extent OnlyFans as like bedroom casinos, because there is an addictive component as well, in the sense that to make like a slot machine addictive, you need to have ready access, you need randomized rewards, and you need frequent replay, right? And these three properties exist in camming land, at least that was what Joanna was telling me, and presumably in OnlyFans land as well.
What do you mean by randomized rewards, sorry, when it comes to...
Like one classic example is you write prizes on Jenga blocks, do a Jenga tower, people tip to pull, have the cam girl pull out Jenga blocks, and then when it falls, you get something.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my question is, if we view it kind of as a casino, I don't think we should ban it. Casinos can bring a lot of joy and happiness to people, but I think there's an addictive component to it. And I think that I would just love to hear your reflections on the fact that there is some potential moral responsibility for the cammers and for the OnlyFans content creators to make sure that their clientele aren't overly addicted and spending more money than they can actually afford. So I'm just curious your thoughts on the relationship between online addiction and OnlyFans and camming.
Yeah, I would say there's like meaningful differences between OnlyFans and camming. Like there's very strong differences in the ways that payments are incentivized. I'd say that like the risk of the gambling thing is much higher when it comes to camming than it is OnlyFans. Like I would say OnlyFans is worse in some ways. I have a lot of complaints about like sort of the things it's doing to society. I still think it's worth it, to be clear. But camming specific, like, so when I've worked with a bunch of cam girls and with OnlyFans girls, like been in chats, lived in group houses. As a cam girl, it would often come up, be like, hey, I think that a guy who's tipping me is dipping into his like emergency life savings now. Like that was not an unheard of conversation. And then we'd have discussions about what to do about it. And generally, I mean, I'm not sure if I was in particularly good circles, but we would actually tell the guys, like, stop. Like, I knew girls who would issue moratoriums, like, you're not allowed to come to my room, you're banned for a month. That's great. Or something. And this just makes me think there might be a selection effect with Findom. Like, maybe the girls who aren't willing to do that are the kinds of girls that end up graduating Findom. But at least when I was working as a cam girl, this was widespread. among all the girls who I knew who were doing it. But the thing is, they had to do it, right? There were guys who were trying to do this thing. You keep running into guys. And I think this is part of the way that camming is structured. But I have never heard of a single person having to do this with OnlyFans. OnlyFans is just a completely different financial structure. OnlyFans is also less gamified than camming.
Okay.
Because with camming, it's like really highly competitive, and you do have the randomized games like the Jenga thing. You get like the little roulette wheels that you spin. But OnlyFans even has some rules against things you can post that make those kinds of games easier. Like, even just like what you can tip for to get things. Tip menus are like, I need to remember what the exact rules are on them right now, but there's been some gray area. It's also just less like good platform to build games on in general because it's not very live. This is a very like you're looking at a feed that already exists. And yes, girls like will text you throughout the night, but this isn't like a randomized reward game cycle. You probably would hate drips. Now drips are kind of fucked. But that's,
what are drips? What are drips?
Drips are like where a girl will get you horny and then slowly extract money out of you. And it's not even a Findom thing. It's where like she'll send a you up like mass message. And this OnlyFans is constructed to make this easier. Like the system of OnlyFans, you can do it. So you send basically a mass message. I'm talking and walking up to my speed down so I don't breathe as hard. Basically, you send a mass message, like a free message to everybody who's subscribed, like, hey, you up, or whatever. And then like a certain percentage of those will respond. Then you can unsend the message to people who didn't respond. So if you wake up later, you don't get to see that message.
Oh, wow.
And then of the people that respond, you can send like a nude or like you horny, whatever. And then you can like basically filter it down. And then you send like a photo of you. You get them hard basically with like some teasing stuff. Then you send a really cheap photo or video of you like, you know, escalating like $2, $5. They pay that. And then you just, it's a series of escalating costs. So it's like $5, $10. And then the final money shot where you like come or whatever is like 20 or 30.
To be clear, so it's not that I hate OnlyFans or hate camming. It's more that all of the other criticisms I've heard of these platforms are more along the lines of this is destroying society, and none of that I found persuasive at all. But treating it not as we either need to ban the thing or let it just be what it is, but treating it more as let's just be cognizant of some of the negative consequences and how can we change the conversation or change the practices and the norms of each individual content creator and each individual cammer such that we mitigate these risks as much as possible. So I'm much more talking in terms of let's just acknowledge that there is addictive potential that, unlike with porn, can cause financial ruin or financial hardship. And just like with a casino, where like my closest friend, they got married and then the after party was at a casino, and casinos can bring a lot of joy to people's lives. And so I wouldn't want to prohibit casinos, but we want to kind of tune the dials such that we can maximize the enjoyment and mitigate the harms. And I think acknowledging that there is addictive potential and that the incentives are such that the content creators want people to give as much money as they possibly can. And they probably aren't as incentivized to find those who are unable to bear the load financially. Then it's more of a question of how do we reform it, right? And so that's kind of my question to you is what kind of reforms do you think could take place on all these platforms such that we mitigate these kinds of harms given the difficult incentive structure?
So for example, most sex work has moved from camming to OnlyFans. Like camming, you get a very few amount of people pay most of your money. It's like a very exponential distribution. But OnlyFans, most people are paying a very small amount. It's very, 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 very rare to get one guy who is 90% of your income. It's very rare to extract lots of money from one guy. Typically, it's like, I think my average income per user for a while was like $30. Like that was, and like the highest guy was maybe $400 a month. It's
nice.
just, it's completely different. So the industry is already naturally, I would not really be that concerned about the financial doming specifically with OnlyFans. OnlyFans is bad for other reasons. Like I think that escorting is the best. Escorting just psychologically is fantastic. Incentive wise, it's the least likely to lead to bad outcomes. I mean, besides murder, but besides that,
sure.
So
just the small issue of murder.
It sounds like probably most financial domination is happening through like text and Cash App, because you can't transact large amounts through most of the platforms. They have a cap. The highest amount of money you can send on OnlyFans, I think, is $200 at a time. And if you want to like raise your limit on my free camps, for example, you had to go through a whole annoying process. Basically, anytime I was trying to get a high payment, it was just a pain in the ass. So my guess is this is probably happening through Cash App, and it's probably like do it through like some sort of forum thing. And my guess is this, like, I would not really be that worried about OnlyFans for that reason.
Yeah. So to clarify, there's kind of two things that I'm interested in getting more information about, just in general. And one is just the incentive structure for OnlyFans, how it differs from camming. And what you said is actually great to know that it's much less of a gamified system, because I was maybe conflating these two things. But the second is like the funnel and the onboarding and the act of going from not paying online to paying online. And so people who browse Reddit typically don't pay, then they make the switch to paying. And once the credit card is in, then you've made the switch. And presumably a lot of them, $30, $20, that's totally fine. But then you hear the search term Findom, and then you go onto Twitter. And so I guess Twitter is the place where this takes place the most. And if you want to see something particularly horrifying, type in Twitter, Findom, relapse. And it's the only thing where relapse is glorified, where there's like, I've made my sub relapse today, and relapse is like a good thing compared to any
it's
other.
It's probably a kink thing, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm struggling a little bit with the word kink and fetish in the context of Findom, because I think that it's a bit of a euphemism when it's being used to address self-harm behavior. I think that if my kink or my fetish was like, I can't get off until I financially ruin like a friend of mine, we wouldn't call that a kink. We call that like sociopathic behavior. But for whatever reason, when it's self-directed, all of a sudden it's a kink. And so I struggle with calling that a kink in this particular case, not in every case, but in this particular case, I think it can be a bit of a euphemism. So.
Yeah, I mean, so like I have a rape kink.
So no, I think it's different in the sense that like when you do CNC parties or consensual non-consent, you're consenting in the meta space, right?
Right. And I'm saying there's ethical and unethical ways to do the kink that I have. There's ethical and unethical ways to do a wide variety, like H play, for example. Don't rape a kid, but have an adult dress up and pretend. And I'm saying, I'm saying that the Findom and relapse thing can be a kink, and you can do it in an ethical or unethical way. And you could be arguing that like the majority of the way that it's practiced is unethical. And like maybe this is true, I don't know. But I'm like very careful to like wrap up something that somebody can practice ethically into being necessarily unethical just because a lot of people aren't doing it the right way.
Yeah, so that's an excellent point. So maybe we can get off the subject because I know there's a lot of other questions, but just to close the loop on that. So I was listening to a couple like old school DOMs. They talked about how Findom can absolutely be done ethically. And so the way that it typically looks when it's done ethically is, first of all, it's in person. And second of all, the DOM actually cares a lot about the subs, like long-term finances. And there's aftercare. And so after like a certain period of play, then there's just like a human connection. Let's just check in, making sure that both sides are enjoying it. And there's actual care and concern and consideration. And so it absolutely can be done that way. But when there's a flood of 19 to 23-year-olds who are just looking to make a quick buck, and then there's another flood of like 45-year-olds who, at least with this, again, particular fetish, like from all of the interviews I've listened to, most of the men who are doing it because they're pretty sad inside. And I don't think that applies to other fetishes. I think that is unique to this one. And so, yes, it can be done ethically. And in that sense, it absolutely is a proper kink. But I think that this online nature and the age dynamic and the fact that the financial incentives are such that who gives a shit about the aftercare and actually caring about this other person is what's making it much more of a serious problem.
I can check. I measure Findom in my data, and I also measure like other personality questions. Maybe not how happy you are, but I measure like I feel powerless. I can check to see if there's a correlation. Yeah,
I'd love to see that, but I'm also worried that like I would be surprised if your social circle or people who follow you on Twitter people who like read long form blogs are going to be the kinds of people who are into this particular kind of.
I think that this is a fair critique. However, the survey that I'm referencing went viral well outside my circles, and
awesome, cool,
has
that's great.
650,000 respondents.
Heck yeah! Oh, please, I'd love to know more about this. So